Imagine this, it's 1939. The sky over Europe is ruled by one of the most powerful air forces the world has ever seen. The Luftwaffe, sleek, fast, and terrifying, strikes with precision and deadly force. Within months, Poland and France are crushed, and the world fears that nothing can stop Hitler's flying war machine. But just a few years later, that same air force is broken, scattered, and defenseless against the Allied onslaught. So what went wrong? In this video, we're diving deep into the one fatal decision Adolf Hitler made. A decision that destroyed the Luftwaffe and changed the course of World War II. Let's rewind. When Hitler came to power in 1933, Germany was still bound by the Treaty of Versailles. No air force, no modern weapons, and no right to rearm. But in secret, Germany began rebuilding. By 1935, the Luftwaffe was officially born, led by World War I ace and Nazi loyalist Hermann Göring. Under his leadership, the Luftwaffe grew rapidly. Within 4 years, it became one of the most advanced air forces in the world. Germany didn't just build planes. It built a doctrine, blitzkrieg. This lightning war relied on close coordination between fast-moving tanks, infantry, and tactical air support. Dive bombers like the infamous Junkers Ju-87 Stuck became the terror of the battlefield. The early results? Devastating. In 1939, Poland fell in weeks. In 1940, France collapsed in just 6 weeks. Even Britain came dangerously close to defeat. The Luftwaffe was fast, aggressive, and tailored for short, sharp campaigns. But that was also its biggest weakness. In the summer of 1940, Hitler launched Operation Sea Lion, the planned invasion of Great Britain. But first, Germany needed to secure the skies. At first, the Luftwaffe targeted RAF airfields and radar stations. It worked. British fighter command was stretched to the limit. Victory seemed within reach. Then came Hitler's critical blunder. After a retaliatory British bombing raid on Berlin, Hitler lost his temper. He ordered the Luftwaffe to stop attacking airfields and focus on bombing London and other cities. This shift from strategic military targets to terror bombing gave the RAF time to regroup. Fighter command survived, the Luftwaffe suffered massive losses, and for the first time in the war, Germany was defeated. This should have been a wake-up call. But instead of adapting, Hitler doubled down on his flawed air doctrine. Let's talk about the elephant in the room: strategic bombers. The British had the Avro Lancaster, the Americans had the B-17 Flying Fortress. These heavy bombers could fly long distances, carry huge bomb loads, and cripple enemy industry. What did Germany have? Almost nothing. Hitler and Göring rejected the development of a heavy strategic bomber fleet. Why? Because they were obsessed with tactical bombing and close air support. Germany did experiment with long-range bombers, like the Heinkel E-177, but they were plagued with design flaws, production issues, and lack of vision. Göring famously declared, "The Führer will not ask how big our bombers are, but only how many we have." In other words, quantity over capability. This was the fatal decision. Without heavy bombers, Germany couldn't strike deep into enemy territory. It couldn't destroy Soviet factories beyond the Urals or stop American industry from churning out tanks and planes. It couldn't win a long war of attrition. And Hitler didn't plan for a long war. He believed Germany would win quickly, just like in Poland and France. Then came Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941. The Luftwaffe played a huge role in the opening stages. Soviet airfields were annihilated. Thousands of enemy aircraft were destroyed on the ground. German troops advanced rapidly. But the Soviet Union didn't collapse like France. The front lines stretched thousands of kilometers. The harsh winter, poor infrastructure, and endless Soviet reinforcements drained the Luftwaffe's strength. Worse, Germany didn't have the logistics to support such a vast campaign. Luftwaffe aircraft began flying from makeshift airfields in the mud and snow. Maintenance crews couldn't keep up. Spare parts were scarce. Fuel became a problem. By 1943, the Luftwaffe was bleeding dry in the east. Soviet aircraft production, aided by American Lend-Lease, surged. German pilots were well trained, but there were fewer of them every month, and no time to replace them. It was a war of endurance, and Germany wasn't built for endurance. While the Luftwaffe was being ground down in the east, a new threat emerged in the west: American and British bombers. Starting in 1942, the Allies launched massive bombing raids over Germany. Day and night, the skies filled with B-17S, B-24S, Lancasters, escorted by ever-increasing numbers of fighters like the P-51 Mustangs. German cities burned, industrial capacity collapsed, civilian morale cracked, and the Luftwaffe? It couldn't stop them. German aircraft were fast, but there weren't enough of them. Anti-air defenses were overwhelmed, fuel shortages became critical, and the few remaining pilots were often inexperienced teenagers rushed through training. In 1944 alone, Germany lost over 28,000 aircraft, more than it had at the start of the war. As the Allies tightened the noose, Germany still had one last chance to regain control of the skies. A technological miracle: the Messerschmitt Me-2862. This was the world's first operational jet fighter. It was faster than anything the Allies had, with speeds over 850 km/h, a plane so advanced it could have torn through bomber formations with ease. But Hitler once again made a fatal decision. Instead of using the Me-262 as a pure interceptor to defend German skies, he insisted it be converted into a fighter bomber, capable of carrying bombs to strike ground targets. Why? Because Hitler still believed in the offensive spirit of blitzkrieg, even as Germany was losing ground on every front. He couldn't accept a defensive strategy. As a result, months were wasted redesigning the aircraft. Valuable time was lost. When the Me-262 finally appeared in combat in mid-1944, it was too late. The Allied air forces already had total air superiority. Jet fighters couldn't change the tide, especially when Germany no longer had enough fuel or trained pilots to fly them. By late 1944, the Luftwaffe was functionally dead. What remained of the once mighty Air Force was a skeleton crew of exhausted veterans and barely trained teenagers. Aircraft production continued. In fact, Germany produced over 40,000 planes in 1944 alone. But there was no fuel, no pilots, and no infrastructure left to use them effectively. Hitler, meanwhile, retreated further into delusion. He blamed everyone but himself. Wolfgang, his generals, even the German people. In the final months of the war, suicide missions became common. Hitler's so-called wonder weapons were supposed to turn the tide, but they came too little, too late. The V-1 and V-2 rockets were terrifying, but strategically useless. Experimental aircraft projects were rushed, chaotic, and often disastrous. Desperation replaced strategy. The Luftwaffe, once the pride of the Reich, was reduced to scattered remnants, unable to protect German cities, troops, or even Hitler's own bunker. So, what really destroyed the Luftwaffe? Not just Allied bombing, not just Soviet air power, not even a lack of resources. It was Hitler's obsession with short-term victories, his refusal to invest in a long-term air strategy, his political interference, his obsession with blitzkrieg, and his inability to adapt. Let's summarize. He abandoned strategic bombers in favor of tactical dive bombers. He shifted focus mid-campaign, like during the Battle of Britain. He misused breakthrough technologies like the Me-2060. He ignored logistics and pilot training in favor of raw production. and he kept believing in victory long after defeat was inevitable. The result? A complete collapse of German air power at the exact moment it was most needed. The fall of the Luftwaffe didn't just doom Nazi Germany, it changed how air power would be used forever. The Allies proved that air superiority is essential for modern warfare. Strategic bombing, long-range escort fighters, and technological innovation would define the Cold War and beyond. But the Luftwaffe's story is more than just a tale of defeat. It's a warning of how hubris, ideology, and poor leadership can sabotage even the most advanced military force. In the end, Hitler's greatest enemy wasn't the RAF or the USAAF, it was his own ego. If you found this video insightful, consider subscribing for more deep dives into military history, strategy, and the decisions that shaped our world. Leave a comment below. Do you think the Luftwaffe ever had a real chance at winning the air war, or was it doomed from the start? Thanks for watching, and remember, in war, air power wins battles, but leadership decides wars.